Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Nanolini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 3, Episode 13. I am here with my co-host, Chris Nanolini.
What's up, everybody?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, my friend, how are you?
I am doing fabulous, brother. How about yourself?
I, myself, am also doing fantastic. You are fabulous.
Awesome.
I'm fantastic. We're kind of like an Italian romance novel or something like that. All I need is like a cape with a big collar and, you know what I mean, with a hat or something like that. I don't know. Something like that. Fabulous and fantastic. The adventures of. So, anything exciting happening in your world?
No, brother, no. You know, we're... obviously, you know, when people hear this, we're a little ahead of when people hear this. So when you hear this, we have already gone through Halloween. But right now, when Mick and I are in this podcast together this evening, we are creeping up on Halloween.
We are creeping up on Halloween, and
yes.
and when people do hear this,
excited.
we'll be in the midst of the holiday Christmas season. The Hallmark season. The Hallmark season's already started. It's already started.
Calm down.
All weekend.
Can I have my moment, please?
You can. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it is, man. I mean, listen. You know, when it gets close, you know, when fall hits, you know, when September kind of rolls around, you get late in September, and you start seeing the fall stuff and gearing up for Halloween. You know, the next couple months are going to be pretty awesome because you go into Thanksgiving and then, you know, Christmas or whatever, you know, holiday you celebrate, and then you go into the new year. So, you know, that's awesome. And then you begin a new year, which is always kind of cool. But yeah, man. So when people hear this, we've already gone through Halloween. But right now, Halloween is not here yet.
Not here yet. In our world, in our timeline.
In our world, that's right. In our world currently.
You know what I mean? It's not here yet. But now these, you know, October, November, December, January, those 4 months, it's just a lot of excitement, a lot of things going on. It takes your mind off that it's getting colder, at least for me. And then mid-January hits, and you're like, oh, where'd this cold come from? You know what I mean? And then you're summer dreaming for the rest of the next 3-4 months. So, but yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good
stuff.
I
came home from vacation. I was excited because when I left, it was still warm. When I came back, it was shorts and hoodie weather, and that's my favorite kind of weather.
Yeah, it's starting to get that fall crispness, man. That wind, that little chill, you know, kind of in between. It's all right. You can keep it if you want, but I like the sun and heat. But I like Christmas. I mean,
listen, so do I. No, so do I. So
it's all good. All right, tonight's episode is so you released an album. So what? Now what do you do? What do you do, Chris? You just released an album. Let the people know.
I did.
So you released an album, right? An album is a huge accomplishment. A lot of work goes into it. For some people, it could be years in the making, right? Years in the making. And I know a lot of albums have come out this year, 2021, because there was some heavy writing throughout 2020, you know, since we were all kind of reduced to doing nothing. So there was a lot of writing, a lot of creating when you could. Recording if you didn't have a home suite studio or anything like that. So 2021 has seen an influx, an overflux, a flux capacitor of album and EP and single releases and projects out the wazoo. So you release an album. What happens next, buddy? Again, you just released an album with your band. It's doing very well. Some interviews and videos. And so what happens next? Where do people go?
Nothing.
It's done. All right, good night, everybody.
No, man. You know, the one thing I did learn, Mick, and, you know, to be honest and to give credit where credit is due, I have learned a lot since you and I have been working together in terms of how things work. And you were the kind of one that showed me, let me rephrase that. You were the one that that solidified the fact that albums, once they're released, it's over, right? Like it is all the leading up to. Is the most
all the pre-sale, right?
It's all the pre-sale. It's anything you do to get some buzz for that record, and then boom, release day or pre-order day, you push it until that sucker comes out. You know, I have to say again, like you really I always kind of knew it, but because you're such a business number guy, you pretty much solidified. You know, that once the album comes out, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's over because that's a horrible thing to say, but it really is about the pre-orders, and what really made me realize that is when Rob Zombie put out his new record, he pushed that pre-order. His pre-order numbers were like, it was on the Billboard charts. Like he was already up. It was released and it was gone from the charts within 2 weeks. If it even was, I think it was about 2 weeks that it was on the charts as soon as it came out because of all the pre-orders and then gone. And that really, really kind of made me go, wow, that is a really, really true statement that it's all about the pre-order and the work leading up to it. And then when it's out, that's when the real work begins. The real work, because now you are trying to keep something afloat, you know, because you don't want it to get lost in the shuffle. Because when your album comes out, there are a ton of other bands with pre-orders behind you. And even if you're lucky enough, like Mick and I are, to be on really great labels, you know, unfortunately, you're not the only band. So once your album comes out, they're going to push it, but they also have to start pushing the albums that are coming out after yours. And this is when the hard work kicks in. You got to, you know, then you got to start playing shows. You got to start hitting up, I don't want to say fan, well, it's not really fanzines anymore. I mean, there's a few out there, but, you know, internet magazines, internet radio stations, and, you know, start really, really pushing and going above and beyond trying to get that record out, because now it's out. Now you want to sell it, right? Like that's the key. You know, start booking shows, or like yourself, you're booking tours, you're going out to the West Coast, and you know, it is hard because everything is kind of just opened up, and not everybody's opened up, but you know, people are starting to open back up and get full shows, and like we had said in previous podcasts, there's, you know, a million bands trying to get a gig. But that's it, man. You really just want to keep pushing interviews and maybe another video. You know, we have 2, you know, we're looking at a 3rd now that the record's out, and you know, just trying to keep up with our social media and turn to our YouTube channel, and again, more interviews, more radio stations, more publicity, sharing, trying to hook up with other bands to push it, help, you know, ask your fans to help push the record, maybe, you know, let them know that it's out there for people that don't know your band or you as an artist.
It's a tough game, and it's a racket now. Like, where everything is in this pre-sale, pre-release state. It's like the old saying, you're as good as the show you have coming up, because everything revolves around that show. And once that show's over, the excitement for everyone is gone. Like, okay, I know they're on to the next fire engine, right? Where in the old days, if you think about this, like these old models where they needed the time for an album to get legs. Like, they allowed it to breathe. And I mean, look, when Def Leppard released Hysteria, I think they released it, it was like almost in the summertime, right before summer or at the beginning of summer, and Woman was released. And I remember kind of hearing the song, seeing the video, I was like, it's okay, it's cool, kind of cool. You know?
Yeah.
And that album, then they released a couple other songs, but it wasn't until Pour Some Sugar on Me that came out, and that was months later. Now, again, the album was starting to climb, slowly but surely. Then they went out and they did their tour. They did it in the round where the stage was circulating. It was going around, right? So everybody got a chance to see the band from every angle, like a 360 type of thing. And that song hits, and all of a sudden they're propelled even further. Right, but that album took months to get there, maybe even a year. Yeah. Same thing, like it took, like when Slippery When Wet came out with Bon Jovi. Like, it almost came out, and there wasn't really that big of a thing, and months go by, song comes out, and it just started to climb, and then, you know, but that's what was expected, because how much pre-promotion could you do back then? I get that, right? Like, you knew it was coming. You sent it out in a newsletter if you had a fan like a fan circuit or something like that. You signed up for the mailing list, or and you got like actual mail. Oh my God, and a piece of paper Xeroxed 1,000 times, or whatever. There was just a buzz, or somebody was talked in Hit Parade or Metal Edge or whatever the case may be. Yeah, we have a new album coming out next year or something like that. Because we didn't get trades or anything like the way that they would say out in LA or anything here in Philly. So you kind of word of mouth or things of that nature. But when that album came out, that's when, and then it was word of mouth. It was like, oh, I just picked up the new such and such an album. So then you play it for your friends, and then they go out and buy it, and so on and so on. Nowadays, it's like they release half the album before the album comes out.
Yeah.
And there's so many songs that are given away for free. Why buy the album? Once it gets to the streaming services, you can go on the YouTube and listen to it, or you can go on the they have all these things that can rip music, and people aren't buying, and so things start tanking. That's why nobody cares after. They want, even the artists, they want it before, and it's a shame. It really is a shame. It's the same kind of thing they're doing with movies now. Now, movies are something, they build up excitement, right? Before, years ago, you couldn't buy tickets months in advance for a show, or even weeks in advance. You could get them maybe a couple days in advance. Or I remember standing in line for Return of the Jedi, and if you didn't make it there in time, you know what I mean, you probably didn't see that show, and you had to, you may have been in line all day, and 5 shows had already played, then you got a ticket. It just, was kind of a weird thing. Or, you got your mom to get you out of school early so you could go stand in line, or you didn't go to school that day, one way or the other. I know people, still do that for certain tickets and stuff like that. But, they're doing it with movies now, too, because they're pushing it right to streaming services. And then, and then it goes to, well, now, because, we're in a kind of no-touch society to some degree. But, it comes to the theater, then it goes to the streaming services before it goes to DVD, or, whatever the case may be. So it has this format. But, like, with albums, like, once it's out there, and then you're in a sea of other things, unless somebody's looking specifically for you. So over the years, I've said, and it's gotten less, like, years ago I was saying, like, an album has maybe about a 6-month shelf life in the new digital age. And that was, 6-7 years ago. And then now the shelf life of that album, like you had mentioned, is up until release date. So if you're pre-promotion, and last year we did an album with a 90-day pre-promotion, and it was kind of like we were pushing to get the album out, because the album had been sitting on the block, and we switched labels, and it was COVID, and it was like, we got to get this album out, because the album should have been out the year before, but because of the shows we were doing, we kept going back and forth to it, and, no one knew the plug was going to be pulled and the rug was going to be taken out from under us. We just figured we'll get back to it when we get back to it. So we kept taking what was in front of us then and there. So we did this aggressive 90-day pre-promotion. And by the time the album actually released, it just kind of like, and I'll be honest, we got good reviews, we were able to, get some good feedback, but really, after a week or so, the album was just like, it was bye-bye, so long. And we were already being talked to about, hey, you guys could do a real quick follow-up of like an EP or something like this. Now, we already had material in the works, because that's just the way we work, but we were like, well, man, we just and what sucked was we weren't able to tour the album like we would normally do. Because I, in the past, have found that now I figured out a way that I can kind of stretch that album out a little bit. And again, that's what they would do. They would build a tour around. So I took some of that old school model and applied it to the new industry. And, that's when we started using more and more of the lyric videos. Like in the early days, I thought they were stupid. Why would anybody even want to watch them? However, I don't watch them, but I use them for promotion purposes, because it's a way to get the song out there. Even now, these image playthrough videos, where they just have, like, it's the image of the album cover, and maybe they have some small animation that happens, like something quivers or some smoke goes by. And I thought that they were stupid 2 years ago. But I'm using them as well, because it's like, well, if that's what's happening and what you're getting people to view your music, you have to go with some of what people, if you can't beat them, join them type of thing, right? Because at the end of the day, like you were saying, it comes down to how do I keep it out there for the people that haven't heard it, but at the same time a little fresh for people that have heard it, right?
Yeah.
And so you do your best that you can. And like you're saying, now that playing out has become available again in certain markets to a certain degree, we're able to, kind of keep things, we can freshen things up a little bit and offering a little bit more, and maybe you'll get some life out of it. But it becomes, and I'm just kind of playing the one side right now, it is kind of a bummer because, like you said, the labels, some do, some don't, they'll support you, but they have to move on at some point because they have an investment in other artists. They can't spend, you're not their single roster artist, right? So they're only going to do so much. And then, like you said, the real work is up to the band. That's when it starts. Like, what am I going to do now? What are we going to do as a unit to keep it out there?
This is Stephen Piercy from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
Let me ask you this, Mick. You had said you did a 90-day pre-order. Do you think 90 days is too long, or do you feel like, in your opinion, or in your professional opinion, do you think 90 days is too long? Because I know we did a pre-order. Ours was about 7 weeks, give or take a few days. I kind of feel like that 7 weeks, although it was a busy push, to me, and please tell me differently, I feel like anything longer, you may have lost interest, or people would have been like, oh, here we go, here's that post,
right?
Or whatever. I mean, how do you feel? Like, what do you think? Do you think 90 days is too long now that you've already gone and done it?
Well, I'm kind of split. So I've used the term, we did an aggressive 90 days. I know the label was concerned. They at one point didn't feel that 90 days was going to be enough. However, I figured, well, listen, if you're doing it correctly, or the best that you can, what's correctly, I don't know. That was a hit or miss thing too, I'll be honest with you, because we were doing a 90-day pre-promotion, pre-sale during a time that no one had ever experienced before. So it was a crapshoot, man, right?
Right.
In the back of my mind, and I'm just going to be transparent, I just wanted the album out. I needed to get it off my plate because we had been working on it on and off for a couple of years. And I was like, well, this is our opportunity, right? The other issue I think that we had come into because of COVID is that the label we were working with had basically closed its doors. It was in Germany, and they were hit hard initially on, and they just shut down. They have yet to open up again. Oh. So they released us from the contract. It took us a month, which, and we're very thankful and grateful for. And really, in the grand scheme, it really isn't that long of a time. But when you're kind of floating around and you thought you had something and then you find out you don't, it just seems like you're just stuck in limbo, what's going on. But within a month, we were able to get a deal together with another label. And, we did the finishing touches to the album and stuff like that. I think 90 days is a good turnaround. If you're trying to pre-sell, again, with digital, okay, that's not really, not that bad. Even with CD, really not that bad, especially if they're trying to cover their numbers. I think with vinyl, you need something maybe a little longer, especially if you're a newer band or a band with a smaller following, because you really got to push that, depending on what you're selling the vinyl for. And I mean, some people are,
that makes sense.
The prices are high, and some people are just trying to get their cut so they can make get the pressing. The other thing with the vinyl is, especially now, even more so than last year or the year before, the vinyl turnaround times has gotten outrageous. So if you did like a 3-month pre-order for vinyl, that would actually make sense, because you could at least get
that's true.
Get 75% of them hopefully reserved, so that by the time they do go to production, or however you have the deal worked out, some of them have, you can, if you're doing this pre-sales, you got to hit a certain number before it goes to production so you can cover costs. Other people buy it straight outright. Some people take the pre-sales, take that money, then make the production, then you got another wait time. So there's all these different ways of doing it. So depending on how you're doing it, it could be what the label had decided to do, which I wasn't super excited about, and again, whether it gets me into trouble or not doesn't really matter. I've already spoken my piece, and it's in the past. Is they wound up releasing too many songs off the album during that 90-day pre-promotion. I mean, literally clobbering people over the head, and I was, like, nah, I'm not sure about that. You know what I mean? That's not what we do. That's not how, because I want some life after it. Now, that's, again, when you're playing out. However, I figured, well, listen, I don't know where we're at. We're giving it a shot. Let's, sometimes you just got to try things. Not everything's going to get hit out of the park, unfortunately. I think too many songs were released at one time or within that time frame that by the time the album came out, there just wasn't anything left to juice it with. You know what I mean? We just moved into another project. Like, the holiday song came out and then kind of took precedence and other reasons. We had some other internal changes that we figured, what, we just kind of, hot potato it and we moved on. and I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? I'm content with it. It is whatever it is. So when we did this year, when they came to us and go, listen, let's get some new material out here. Let's kind of like really hit the gun for 2021. And they wanted another album right away, and I was like, nah, I'm not really keen on that. We just released an album. I don't want to hammer another album out, though we had the material. And that's with our 10-year anniversary, 2021. We decided after talking, saying, listen, let's take what we have, and we split it up. We spread it out over the course of the year, because we were going to tour, do some big tours in celebration of our 10-year. But none of that was going to happen. So we said, we'll do the next best thing that we can do, we have control of, is the amount of music And I know some bands or artists, they'll release singles all the time. And I dig that. That's cool. But I like the packages. I really do. A package of music.
Yeah, me too.
And
me too.
So I'm an EP lover. I love EPs. They're great. I mean, you can experiment with them. You can try different things. It just gives you all this artistic freedom. So I said, look, let's break it up into 3. This is how I overcame 2021, and I kept us in the market the best that I could for the kind of band that we are. So first one came out in March, second one came out in July, third one's we had some pushing around. We had one date then it got moved from October to early November, and then it just recently got moved again to later in November. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It's getting out there, but the third release would be a physical release and a vinyl pre-sale, and we'll have some bonus tracks and things like that. So kept it fresh. I was able to keep one album alive for an entire 12 months by taking some different approaches to it, and I think overall it was very successful in my opinion. Now, I mean, was I making Metallica money? Absolutely not. But I got a lot of exposure. I was able to stay in media's awareness reach to some level, at least the band was. And the music got a lot of play. Even though it was a continuation, there was new stuff happening to it. Does that make sense? Like new stuff being added to it. Almost like you're building a Spotify playlist or whatever, and you keep adding to it, and it keeps building, and it keeps changing, and the numbers keep compounding. And that's kind of where I took this year with the idea. And then this may be a model that I continue to use but tweak because, again, this was experimental. This is the first time that I ever done it in this capacity. And I've seen a lot of positivity to it, but I've also seen some things that I was not real excited about, and looking back and saying, okay, well, I could have done that different. But listen, we're in a new world, right? It's a whole, like we talked about, it's a brave new world of the music industry, and we're learning. And when you don't have the large bank account or financing to throw out behind you, you have to get creative. And there's going to be a couple misses, right? And then you can pick up on the misses. Just recently I seen an interview with Gene Simmons, and he said failures are good. They're great because failures help you succeed. So that you don't repeat that, or you learn something along the way, and it makes you think differently. Now, I know he says a lot of things. There's a lot of hot air and ego behind a lot of the things he says. But if you listen closely, the bottom line is the guy's been successful. Okay? Take out all the other stuff and what people say about him and Kiss and stuff. There's a difference between when you're selling a $41 million Las Vegas home and I'm not, well, maybe I should kind of listen a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay, well, they're using backing track. They're still touring. And that's a big show. So they're making money to keep it up. And whether they're doing it for the money, they're doing it for the fans, they're doing it for themselves, I don't know. It doesn't make a difference. But there's some level of success there. So you listen to some of that. And, you know, failures aren't the end. They're just stepping stones to know when you succeeded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, 100%.
I think that with the albums, right? I mean, so you released an album, so what? Well, listen, if you say so what, right, and I just used it, that was just a joke. That was to get people to, you know, whatever. It's just having fun, sarcasm, people. I can't spell it, but I can say it, and I know what it means. And I do it pretty well. However, the thing is it's not so what. It's fantastic. Right? Whatever it is, you worked on it. You do whatever you can. Just because your label says, well, we're moving on, doesn't mean you have to. Another piece of information that I read, or I seen the video, I can't remember. What I took from what the gentleman had said is, you keep promoting that album until you have something new to promote.
100%.
That means if it's another year till you have something, you continue to promote it. Why wouldn't you?
100%.
Right. And then somewhere down the line, you still promote some of the old stuff. I still do. And here's what I do. Like, I can bring albums back simply by redoing a song, remixing a song, playing it in a different format. Last year, we had an album, well, in 2015, we had an album, Metal Machine. And actually, that was our, I don't know, 4th album or something like that. But it was the one that actually made the difference for us, because the prior ones, they had some mediocre lift to them, but nothing like Metal Machine. All of a sudden, we hit a different market, and we started picking up some attention. We changed the format in terms of how we went through production, some of the writing, and then how we were going to market and promote it. Like, everything kind of culminated at that point, saying, listen, we did this for the 3 albums before, and it just didn't seem to really pan out the way we were hoping. So let's do something different. Let's be novel about it. You know what I mean? And not repeat the same thing and go down the road. And believe it or not, even that had some pushback. Hey, I like going down the road to no return. All right, well, you take that road, and I'll just kind of continue down here and see what happens. Anyway, last year, in the summer, during COVID, we redid the title track, Metal Machine, and we did an acoustic version of it. And we did a video of it. And we did it live. And then, you know, we cleaned it up and did some tweaking to the sound and all. And then we put it out there. It did phenomenal. Like, more so than it's actually, I didn't realize that people were ripping it and playing it on stations. Because it was like, wow, that's kind of cool. We just did it as, hey, we're giving some content out to people because they're stuck at home, and we needed something to do. And it's an easy song to do. You know what I mean? I figured, well, it's easy. I don't have to work too hard about it. And it did real well because it gave a whole different feel and depth to the song that, you know, that maybe wasn't picked up by a certain section of the listening audience. So you can keep albums alive as long as you want. That's what I mean. So you released an album. Okay, keep going with it. Go with it as much as you can. Why not? It's kind of like a couple years back, I started taking the George Lucas approach. I mean, you just keep revamping stuff. Though I didn't like everything he revamped with Star Wars, but the point is every time he put something else out there, people bought it. People wanted to see it. I got plenty of things from him, so I guess it works, right? So why not do it for your music?
You are listening to the Cosmick Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
Another piece of information that one of my mentors, one of my professors had told me is it's always new to somebody.
That's right.
And when he
100%.
said that, I was like, wow. That, I mean, as simple as it is, and everybody goes, oh no, you know. But when you're not thinking that way, when you're constantly like, you got the shovel and you keep digging. How far did we get? We got a foot. All right, keep digging. How far did we get? 3 inches. All right, keep digging. right? Because we're just trying, 2 inches. Okay, keep digging. And that's all we that's all we kept doing was keep digging. When all we have to do is kind of take a step back, see where we're at, what we've got, and then make something more of it. You can take a little of this, take a little of that, and you'd be surprised that how much leg that album or that EP or those groups of songs or that single could get.
Too, man, the one thing I've learned about the release of our new record is the people that have never heard of us, that maybe read an interview or saw the videos or whatever, like they hit us up and they buy the new record and they go, hey, do you have anything older?
Right.
So, like, literally, we just sold something a couple weeks ago. We sold someone our last CD and the one before that one because they wanted both of them because they never heard us before. So they were like, hey, listen, just let me know and, I'll buy everything you have music-wise. And that's what he did.
Yep.
Thankfully, we had some older things, older stuff still laying around. But, it's just, it's one of those things, man, that, it could turn into something. It could turn into someone wanting your older material. Now you've sold 2 records.
Right. Listen, music never dies, right? Like you said, it's always new to someone. There's always a shelf life. It's just a matter of you deciding. Is there an expiration date? No. I remember I was at a music conference. This was in the 90s, and I told the story before. And the guy asked the question, how many people are in the music business? And, nobody raised their hand. Maybe there was one person, he worked at a radio station or something like that. The whole room's filled with people that play and write and record and, not one person raised their hand. And he goes, well, how many people play in a band? Everybody put, how many people write songs? How many people have been in this recording studio and released an album? He goes, well, then you're all in the friggin' music business.
Yeah.
You're in the music business. It's a matter of perception, right?
That's right.
People go, well, if you're not in the music business and making millions and millions, well, nobody is. But that doesn't mean that we're not doing the business of it. You just keep it going, man. You do what you can. Same thing. One of the last shows that we recently played, we played not one person, except for, well, that's not true. I should say one person in the room had heard us before, and that was the person that booked us. The rest of the room didn't hear us before, ever.
Right.
Maybe 25% knew who we were, but didn't really hear us. The rest of them completely unaware. Okay? We sold a crap load of merchandise that night, which I was completely shocked at.
Yep.
Again, the whole show took me off guard because you would have not believed that COVID existed at that venue in that world. There was nothing the place was packed, which we didn't expect. We just figured, hey, listen, we're getting out there. We're getting some practice for ourselves. We deserve that as well. We need some stage time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Shake off the rust.
Yes, shake off. But there was a lot of rust. At our age, the rust just follows us. It's like it's dripping out of my rear. That's how much rust I have. Son, you better go to the doctor because a cream isn't going to fix that. Anyway, we were completely just like, whoa, this is cool. And then that we're selling merch. We had 3 people buy the entire catalog that was sitting on the table. Now, that wasn't even the entire catalog because our first 3 albums I've taken off. You can't even get them anymore because we've talked about that before. I was unhappy with the production, and we had a lineup change. It just didn't present the band in the same way. However, how I've kept those albums alive, I've brought them back. I've redone songs.
Right.
Our first album, we've redone every song, I think, but 2 on it. And we placed them on other EPs as bonus tracks. Like the first 2 volumes that came out this year of Blood and Steel, if you bought now it was only available through the record company digitally. However, if you came to one of our shows, we had a limited run CDs of each one. But they also included 4 bonus tracks on each CD, different songs, stuff from our catalog from the past 10 years. So you're getting a lot of different stuff. And that's how I keep a lot of the old music still going, because you piecemeal it. Hey, come on in, we're going to redo this song, or hey, I already laid the tracks for this, let's get the rest of the band in here to do such and such or whatever. You keep things alive. So the album never dies, in a sense, right? The spirit of the album never dies. I mean, that's the whole idea. Is we're artists. We keep creating. Yes, there's going to be new stuff, but you just don't throw away the Mona Lisa, right? So,
great.
yeah. I mean, a lot of I could have done better. I could have done better. Well, then redo it, and you have a couple different versions, right? The thing is, and everybody go, well, you're not Motley Crue, you're not Judas Priest, you're not Metallica, you're not Bruce Springsteen, whatever the case may be. The idea, though, is if the model's working for them, yes, they got the fan base, they got the juggernaut of finance behind them. But if the model, in its most purest concept, is working at the core, makes sense, why not give it a shot? If your core audience is 2 people and 2 people buy it, well, that's 100% of your audience just bought it. Yeah. So the numbers all make sense.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It may take you into a whole new direction. But hey, so an album released? Fantastic. Keep it going. Keep it going. It's the same with any other product. Everything that you post or share, picture of the band or you as an artist with a fan or something, somewhere in that tag or in that post, something about your album, something about the music, something about, even if if it takes them back to a website, to a social media page that can lead them to your music, to a video, to whatever, then it never really dies. And you make that decision as the individual artist. You cannot rely on other people to do that, especially your label or your distribution or whatever. Listen, even the biggest hits, some of the biggest albums of all time, Michael Jackson's Thriller, right? Some of the Beatles classics, Led Zeppelin 4, whatever. Those distributors still they're not, now, again, those albums survive on their own. They live on their own. I get that. But they're not being pushed today. Right. They're not being pushed today, right? But if you go back into their catalog, you can still find them. And that's the idea. So those distributors, those labels, those even the media, they're going for what's now. Everything's about what's happening right now. And once now passes, nobody cares anymore. Right? It's like, it's not even now, it's what's going to happen then that we keep going towards, and we keep flying by the now. And that's why the album is almost, the release date of the album is almost a bury date, in my opinion. And I think it's going to get to that point where they're not even going to, maybe they'll get rid of pre-promotion altogether and just drop it and see what happens. I don't know. I know there was, Beyonce did that. Didn't let anybody know, right? Didn't she a couple years ago and just dropped something?
Yep.
And
just dropped it, yeah.
Like 6
but I
albums
think
worth
with that
of
is too, I think I think with that too, though, you lose that excitement, because I know the one thing, man, I'm only speaking for myself, I can't speak for anybody else, and I'm not comparing us to Beyonce by any means, but like that was the most exciting part, was those 7 weeks like leading up to the album. Like we couldn't wait to start promotion for the 7 weeks, and once we hit it, man, it was all guns blazing. Like we were excited about it, and we were building this buzz, and we were getting, people were getting excited about it. And I think if you just drop something, if that's the way that this could go one day, I think you're missing that excitement. I mean, even, I'd love to turn on, on Fridays, on New Music Fridays, like, when I turn on my Spotify, and if it's a band that my Spotify is familiar with that I listen to, they'll go, hey, new song. There's nothing better than like when I open my Spotify on a Friday morning and go, oh, holy crap, like so-and-so put out a new song, and then, you look into it and you're like, oh my God, the new record's coming out on such a date. And like, that's the excitement of that, of that pre-order, that time is, leading up to it. So, I mean, why not? Why not push all the way through once an album's released? Because the excitement doesn't really go away. You just have to find new ways to get people excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it, though. That comes from a person of a generation where there was an excitement for that, right? Because we didn't have all this extra stuff.
We didn't have that.
Yeah, and now it's like out there all the time, and you're literally seeing new footage of your favorite artists, now mostly in the pop and mainstream, like every day. Like, I mean, you could tune into their TikTok or their Facebook feed or whatever else has video on it, and you could see something new from them every single day.
Yep.
So, in essence, if they have that kind of number generation, that kind of awareness, that kind of immediate contact, dropping an album, like they may need 2 days. Hey guys, guess what? This Saturday morning, 11 o'clock, you're going to watch me live. Press the button to release my new album, such and such, digitally available everywhere, or just exclusively on my website, right? People have done that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that excitement is something that, you know, again, we're a certain generation where it's, you know, we still like some of that tangibility, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily portability, as it is now for a lot of people, but it's tangibility. So we get excited about that. Oh, there's a new product, so to speak, you know, rather than just another download. Because like you said, a lot of times when you're buying the CD or the merch package of that album or something, you get a free download. You don't even bother with it, right? You had mentioned that a couple times. To go back to, okay, the album's released and things are starting to decline quickly. It's kind of like, you know, the plane crash in Lost. It went really down really fast. The thing is like, again, the whole point is it doesn't have to stop there. You make that decision. You could still get interviews. You could still do promotion. You may be doing it on your own. Listen, we've said before, there are plenty of PR people out there that will take your money. And I had an album that I released, re-released again for a third time. I did it in like waves over the course of a year and a half. And each time I got a little bit more push to it, just because I was just pushing the album a little bit more, changed some things, whatever the case may be. Were they the big numbers that I was hoping for? No, it seldomly ever is. But each time I did get some recognition for it and a new group of people. Because what's happening now, a year later, and we've seen this 2020 to 2021, the same people may not be around. With the internet and everything that's happening there, things come and go constantly. There are a ton more new social media sites in terms of, or platforms or outlets for music media, music coverage. And then there's a lot that aren't there anymore that were there last year. Some of the big ones, of course, they're still there, right? But there's a lot of new people doing it, people that decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a reviewer. I'm going to be an interviewer. I'm going to be a blogger. I want to let people know whatever, because they took up some new hobby over the year, kind of like, you know, in 2020, like we did with this podcast. You know what I mean? But the idea is, who's in the business, who's running the business, whatever. It's always changing. It's kind of like government, people. It changes every 2 to 4 years. So don't get too worked up. We can make a change. We just got to hold out. You know what I mean?
Constantly changing.
Constantly changing. But anyway, the thing is I remember doing interviews myself, and then some people that I reached out to and said, hey, listen, I'd like to do an interview request. I actually had PR people say, listen, the artist isn't doing anything right now. Can you maybe come back in 6 months when they have such and such coming? Like, well, if I knew that my PR person did that, turned away an interview, a possible interview, I'd fire him on the spot. Dude, get lost. It doesn't matter if you're an artist who's creating. You have music before, during, and after. You always have something to promote.
Yep,
even
always.
if you're just promoting yourself. It doesn't matter whether the album came out a year ago or you don't have another album coming out for another year. Like, you're going to sit dormant, especially nowadays. We've talked about it. Man, you sit dormant too long, people quickly forget about you. Again, only at the top of the mountain do people remember Kiss, Metallica, Bruce Springsteen, Rod Stewart, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. These people don't have to do anything ever again. Elvis is dead and gone, people. He left that building, yet he's still he's making more money now than he did when he was alive. Yeah. I'm just using it as an example, right? Those fans aren't going to go away. They're going to just keep getting bigger. But for the rest of us, you know what I mean? Things have changed, and they're going to keep changing. And unless we keep doing something, keep reminding people, hey, we're out. If you're not going to do that, then you're just making music for yourself, which is cool. Then you don't need to do all this other crap. You don't need a social network. You just make some CDs, you hand them out to some friends, you do a couple gigs whenever you feel like it, and that's the end of it. You do it when you want, when you feel like it. But if you're trying to do this a little bit more involved, you want a bigger reach, you want to take advantage of what the internet and the social media and everything else has to offer, the goal is you are your biggest cheerleader. You are your biggest promoter, and that comes down to whether you only have one song, an EP of 4 songs, or a full-length album of 14 songs. That's what you got to promote. and you promote it until you have something new to promote, and then you continue to promote. And that's it, because I got dry throat at this point. What do you think? You got anything else you want to add?
No, man, I think we pretty much covered everything.
So you released an album. So what? Go do something about it. Stop crying. And if you want to cry, send your comments directly to Chris. If you like what you heard here, check us out at www.thecosmickvoice.com. Don't be afraid to step into the Cosmickverse. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmickvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice. You can find The Cosmick Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
Okay, folks, that will do it for another episode of The Cosmick Voice. Mick and I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
You're listening to The Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.